Hello, I'm Joseph Dillard. This is the second in a series of videos designed to familiarize you with IDL Online Dream Interviewing. Once you have listed your 3 life issues, it's time to choose a dream to work with. If you have had a nightmare, a repetitive dream, a fascinating psychic dream, or something else that commands your attention and draws your curiosity, work with that. Why? Because it is most likely to be evidential for you, since you are curious and motivated to understand it or make it go away. If you don't have such a dream, you can interview a character from a dream that you are sure is meaningless, mundane, irrational, irrelevant, or unimportant. What better way to test the effectiveness of IDL interviewing than to evaluate its effectiveness in finding value in those things which are of little value or meaning to you? Tell the dream in first person, present tense, as if it were happening now. This helps you recreate in the present the experience of the dream. Here is the nightmare I am going to work with, one I had some 50 years ago. I am in an upper chamber, sitting at a wooden table, explaining to my parents that I have learned from a Ray Stanford psychic reading that before the birth of Jesus, an angel bearing a holy light walked through the land as a harbinger of the coming birth of the Messiah. As I am speaking, there is an enormous earthquake, and the 3 of us are knocked to the floor. I feel the overpowering presence of this angel moving into the room through a wall, bearing this light. I get up off the floor and my parents are gone. I rush to one of 2 windows, look down and out, and to my horror, see my mother hung by the neck by a rope out the window. I pull her up by the rope, drag her inside, take off the rope, and she gasps, "Your father!" With horror, I rush to the other window, look down, and to my horror, I find my father hanging by his neck like my mother had been. As I pull him up, I can tell, to my great horror, that he is dead. I wake up sobbing. Next, I will write down my associations to the dream. The purpose of this step is to surface and table your assumptions about what the dream means so that they do not contaminate the interviewing process. When you become the character of your choice, you want to speak from its perspective as if you were it, not from your perspective. So, surfacing and tabling your interpretations and assumptions is important for doing so. Here are my associations. When I had this dream, I had just finished university and traveled with friends to Southern California to study the light work, or Agni Yoga, developed by a chiropractor and purported psychic, Russell Paul Scofield. The method claimed to develop psychic powers and provide enlightenment through the awakening and circulation of frequencies of high energy personified by different colors. You move through your chakras in various ways. My teacher was Ralph Metzner, who had taught at Harvard in the early 1960s and experimented with Timothy Leary and Richard Alpert, later known as Ram Dass, with psychedelic drugs. I was having trouble digesting my lessons. I found the process invasive and contrived, but I had made a major life commitment to move to California and learn the process, so I continued. Scofield knew of my respect for dreams and dreaming, and perhaps also knew of my doubts about Agni Yoga. One morning I awoke with a dream that Scofield had come to me and said, "Just keep working until lesson number 23. Then all will be clear." This felt more like a psychic visitation by Scofield than a dream. It felt like an invasion of my dreams by someone who knew I respected what my dreams said. At any rate, I ignored that and continued the lessons. It was a week or two later that I had the above dream. Regarding what it meant, at the time my approach to understanding dreams was through symbology, based on immersion in the dream interpretation approaches of the Edgar Cayce readings, Carl Jung, and what I knew about universal symbolic meanings from the reading Mircea Eliade's classic Patterns in Comparative Religion. I interpreted the dream as saying that in my life I was figuratively doing the light work in the expectation that it would result in the coming of what Edgar Cayce readings referred to as the Christ consciousness, or a full awareness of my oneness with God. The upper room was like my pineal and pituitary endocrine glands, important physiological correlates for spiritual opening in the Edgar Cayce readings. And telling my parents about it was me telling my parental superconscious what I was attempting to do. The two windows were symbolically my eyes. I interpreted the earthquake as the exercises I was doing in the light work as shaking the physiological foundations of my ability to access the divine. I interpreted the angel and its holy light as the light work, which I had undertaken under the assumption it was a preparation that would enable me to access the Christ consciousness. I interpreted the hanging of my parents as being cut off from the will of my parents, or the sources of my physical, social, and cultural identity, because the thyroid gland in the neck was associated in the Edgar Cayce readings with the will, or ability to make healthy choices. The survival of my mother implied to me that I had not lost that contact, which symbolized nurturance for me, but that I had lost contact, or was dead to, my relationship with my father, who symbolized God as Father for me at that time. It's important to add that despite this interpretation, I was so invested in my commitment and the training that I continued to take lessons for some weeks after I had this dream and had arrived at the belief that the light work was toxic for me. I say that to indicate how dreamlike our waking investments can be, how we can get caught up in personal, emotional, and physical addictions and worldviews, and relationships that we know are not healthy, but continue with them anyway. I want you to know that I have been there and done that, and that I do not see myself as any less vulnerable to self-delusion than others. It's only that I now have tools to recognize those delusions earlier and to wake me up out of them faster if I am willing to pay attention. Our next video in this series on the IDL Dream Interviewing Protocol is providing a date, name, and deciding who to interview. Thanks for watching. See you next time.